What do you feel comfortable telling us about what it was like for you to learn that the coach had been dismissed and your name being linked with being one of the key tail signs that something was wrong inside the locker room?
I mean, at the end of the day, honestly, I don't really give a damn about really too much of it. At the end of the day, for me, it's one of those things where at some point enough is enough. Just as far as expressing frustrations. But I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I found out through ESPN of the firing first, and then received some phone calls, texts after that. But I mean, at the end of the day, this is not my first go around. It's not my first rodeo with firing and things like that. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a business. Guys get fired all the time. Player, coach, GM, it happens. So I mean, again, I don't necessarily feel like I was just some major part that played a role in getting him fired. I mean, that's not on me. But I mean, at the end of the day, too, there was frustration. There was words from myself that I expressed just from my frustrations of losing. I mean, like I said, and part of what I said after the game is, I mean, I've been losing for 5 years. So I mean, I feel like a high level player like myself, after a certain point, losing games, how we've been losing games, somebody has to express something. And I mean, for me, it was something that was a spur of the moment thing, and it went the way it went at the end of the day.
Jalen, we know you enough to know that you believe in communicating with intention.
Well. Losing sucks, huh?
Losing does suck. For 5 years, losing sucks.
Losing sucks, but guess what doesn't? The Halftime Podcast, ladies and gentlemen. How you doing today, Coach?
Doing great. Had a good day so far. Ready for this game tonight that we're coaching.
Yes.
Prepared mentally, physically, everything. Just gotta go out there and perform. That's all.
Yeah, we don't have to go out there and perform.
Sure.
Our kids do.
I mean, we still do.
Yes and no.
Right.
Yeah, we play a part, but if they don't go out there and execute,
well, yeah,
it's nothing that we can do.
Obviously.
Yeah.
But anyways, welcome to episode 11, everybody.
Episode 11.
We really do appreciate all the love we got on last week's episode with Coach
absolutely,
Moo, especially on all the clips on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube Reels. You guys have been killing it with us. And kicking it with us, really. I mean, we
running
appreciate
our numbers up.
Love the debates we're having in the comment section.
Absolutely,
that's what we're here for.
Yo, we absolutely love the engagement.
Yes.
So anytime anybody on any platform that we're on, if you got something to say it, please.
Absolutely.
We are definitely adamant about getting back to anybody that has anything that they need to say or any disagreements that they have, or if whatever it is. Like we love it. We embrace it. We want that type of interaction. We want to speak to you. And at the end of the day, we're not afraid to argue our points, and we're not afraid to be wrong. Sometimes, I mean, it's okay to be proven wrong. That's the enjoyment of life. That's the enjoyment of how things go, and the way that you can learn. If every time you speak you're always right, or nobody is willing to give you any type of pushback, you'll never get better. So we love it. We love it.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Again, appreciate the love and support we've gotten on all of our episodes, really, but specifically the last one. You guys really did chime in and argue with Coach Malcolm here on his Jaden Daniels and Caleb debate, which is what we like. That's why we do what we do, is to just say our points, be proven wrong or prove you right. You know what I mean? That's why we're here doing this. But anyways, let's get into our opening segment here. Week 13 in the NFL. Go over some of the results in these games. Any surprises that you had, Coach, as far as last week?
Surprises, no. Just disappointments. I wanted Baltimore to beat the Philadelphia Eagles. I really wanted them to pull out that game. But Justin Tucker is just fucking.
Jeez.
I don't know what the fuck is
That's
going on.
That's my fantasy
with that.
kicker too, man. I've been struggling this year.
Indianapolis pulling out the game against New England. I'm not necessarily surprised by that, but I thought that Drake May was turning a corner, and losing to Indianapolis at this point is like losing to a Pop Warner team because they just have so much going on. Even though the record is okay,
Yeah, I think they're 6-9.
Yeah, they're not. The record is
Yeah.
not the worst thing in the world, but it's just like, come on, man.
Right.
And then the Bengals losing to Pittsburgh. I actually thought that was a game that Cincinnati could probably pull away from, but they didn't. And now I'm, kind of wondering about what will be the plans for Cincinnati in the offseason to get back to their competitive state. I'm interested to see what they decide to do. And as always, my boy Jaden Daniels put belt to motherfucking ass on the Tennessee Titans.
As always.
What's
What's been going on the last 3 or 4 weeks, man? Where was this energy the
first
last
of
3 or 4 weeks?
First of all, we're not living in the past. We're on to the present now. Okay?
But when Caleb
I mean,
plays
that
like shit.
I mean,
That's fine. You know, I know.
Caleb
I know.
has to give me something to be happy about. At this point,
Holy shit.
he has to give me. I mean, he
Whatever.
hasn't given me a winning
Whatever,
record.
Oh God.
We haven't had a consecutive streak of wins more
Christ
than 2
almighty.
weeks. Like, I mean, give me something before I can sit around
Wow.
and just be elated.
Wow.
At least Jaden Daniels' rookie season, Washington is second in their division, already won more games than projected with a weaker roster, by the way. So we don't really have to do this debate because it's not one. But other than that, that was about me. How about you, Coach?
Yeah, I thought I agree with you that Philly game. Obviously Coach Moo had his boys winning. They did win.
He was skeptical.
Yeah, he was skeptical. I mean,
Yeah.
he did think obviously he wanted Philly to win. Were they going to win? Lord knows.
Yeah.
I was watching a bit of that Rams Saints game. What a shitter of a game. I mean, honestly, it was really bad. I got bored. I really got bored. I was at my friend's house having a good time watching that game. Or no, I really stopped having a good time watching that game, and we just started doing other shit. But I did have the Panthers winning. They took the fucking Buccaneers to overtime.
And
Bryce Young,
it out.
yeah, Bryce Young looked pretty damn good in that game.
Yeah.
They had a solid run game. They just couldn't. They couldn't get
Well,
stops at
like
the end of the game.
like we said before, when we talked about Bryce Young getting benched for Andy Dalton, we said that a good thing about this is that now when he comes back, he's free of the expectations of being that number 1 overall pick. Right? Once that benching occurred, it was like, okay, all the weight has finally lifted off of him of being this elite quarterback and everything like that. Now he can just kind of come back and just do what he can, because at this point the expectations have been removed. It's like, okay, he got benched. We thought he was trash. Okay, Andy Dalton isn't proven to be anything better. We might as well go back to the young guy and see what we can get. And that has worked for him.
Yeah.
That pressure, that removal of expectations, I think it has finally lifted and allowed him to kind of like get out of that, get underneath that pressure, and just gotta go like, okay, now I can just go play football and let whatever happens.
By the way, that touchdown pass he threw to Adam Thielen that got ruled incomplete, absolute bullshit. They should have won that game, but whatever.
It is what it is. NFL refs.
Refs gonna be the refs, right?
The refs gonna be the refs.
We know a lot about that.
The refs gonna be the refs, and sometimes the refs have bigger stakes in the game than you do, baby.
Sure do.
If you know, you know. All right, so moving on from that, you ready to play our game? Our favorite fucking game? Who's cooking and who should stay the out the kitchen? Number 1, this team has turned around pretty much overnight. Based upon where they were last season to where they are now, this is a completely different football program. And we want to show love to Jim Harbaugh and the Los Angeles Chargers. Let's go. Let's give it to him. Let's give it to him. Let's give it to him real quick. The Chargers, man. I want to say I'm shocked, but I'm not. When you have a head coach like they have, who demands excellence, who demands greatness, who is understanding of how to install discipline into a team and get them to understand their roles and what they're accountable for, you can win a lot of games just simply off of doing your job. Just doing your job.
Mm-hmm.
Not doing anything spectacular, not trying to have splashy moments and splashy plays. If you just simply do your job, you can win the game. And I think that is what he has brought to the Los Angeles Chargers. Discipline, understanding, prioritizing the pecking order of what you're responsible for. And that has laid the foundation for them to turn around this football organization from what they were last year to this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think last week's win against the Falcons just proved that. They won 17-13.
Yeah.
I mean, not a high-scoring game. This isn't a high-scoring team.
No.
But they're very disciplined. Not a lot of pre-snap or post-snap penalties because you know Harbaugh going to let their ass yes, no.
Yeah.
At
What the fuck
halftime.
are you doing?
What are we doing?
Yeah.
Second of all, I think on the contrary to how the Chargers have been in the past, they have lost a lot of close games. This year, they're winning those close games,
Yes.
and I think that is a direct correlation of
To
Jim
their
Harbaugh
coach.
coming onto the team,
Yes,
onto the
sir.
staff. So,
Yes, sir.
absolutely, Chargers have been playing great. Justin Herbert looks better than ever. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. I'm
Justin
really
Herbert
big fan of him.
he looks very poised.
Yes, yeah, and I think he's got a coach that believes in him,
Yeah.
and is going to
absolutely.
instill confidence in him.
All right. Moving on to the NBA, a team that's cooking in the NBA. And this team was full of a lot of turmoil last year, potential that had kind of fallen off. And they were coming into the season with mild expectations. I
Yeah.
don't want to say it was high. Obviously, there were still expectations for them, but it was kind of tempered because you had certain guys coming back from injury, new guys that you were adding from the draft. And we are talking about the one and only Memphis Grizzlies, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep.
Ja Morant is back. He's doing his thing with the team. Obviously, he's not playing every single game. There are some games where he's been held out for load management and injury management, as we call it. But I am thoroughly surprised and shocked by how the Memphis Grizzlies have been able to turn what they were last year, which they were one of the worst teams in the NBA, to being one of the better teams in the Western Conference that is absolutely loaded with teams that can beat you on any given night. And I'm excited that they are back into the fray because you do want to see Ja Morant in the playoffs.
Absolutely.
Regardless of whether or not Memphis is going to get to the finals or anything like that, you want to see a player like Ja in the NBA playoffs, and that's very good for me as a fan, obviously very good for the NBA, and also very good for the city of Memphis.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, the Grizzlies, when they were healthy 2 years ago, were one of those top teams in the West. I think that was when they made the Western Conference Finals, if I'm not
so, yeah.
against Golden State.
Yeah.
They ended up losing. But yeah, and then last year just very just riddled with injuries throughout the year. But this isn't shocking to me, seeing Ja Morant come back, playing with Desmond Bane. I think Zach Edey has played very well basketball as well.
Absolutely.
He's really translated his college game to the NBA, which a lot of guys did not think he could do.
Yeah.
So I think good on Memphis. Doing great. Coach has been coaching his ass off. They're playing great basketball. They're putting up points like it's nothing. I think in the last 5 games they've averaged at least 125 points per game, which is absolutely absurd. That's like Boston Celtics type level of scoring.
Yeah.
And no, absolutely, I agree with you. Playing great basketball.
Yep. And sticking to the NBA, another team that's cooking, more so the coach.
Yes.
Because we are coaches, so when we see a coach doing a phenomenal job, we have to just shout them out. Jamal motherfucking Mosley. For the Orlando Magic. Obviously, if you're not hip to what's going on with Orlando, Paolo Banchero has been out for almost about a month now.
Yeah.
And at the time, the conversation was that without Paolo, Orlando was just kind of going to fall off a cliff. And when Paolo was playing, the Orlando Magic was, I think, top 3 in the East at that time anyway. And so when he went down, there was this expectation that down goes Paolo, down goes the Orlando Magic. But no, Jamal Mosley has been coaching his ass off, and he has been showing that he is really the fundamental engine behind this team and getting guys to understand how to play his scheme on defense and offense and how to give the effort they need to night in and night out. And he's been coaching these guys absolutely well, and it's got them essentially still staying in the top 3 of the East without Paolo, who is their best player, who is pretty much an all-star right now, and arguably you can say at his position is probably top 5. And so having a player like that not being active for you and still maintaining being top 3 in the East, Jamal Mosley, all hats off to you. From one coach to another,
Yes, sir.
You're doing the fucking damn thing out there in Orlando, bro.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it any better. Franz Wagner has been looking absolutely fucking great.
Yeah.
And I think that's, you could definitely credit a lot of that to, of course, himself, because you still got to go out there and perform.
You
But
gotta hoop.
I think the way Jamal Mosley's using them, I think Jalen Suggs has been phenomenal. They put him in the correct positions.
Yes.
I think in general, like when Wendell Carter came over from that Bulls trade, Wendell Carter has looked so good. He's
He's been what they need.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
I think that's as a coach, what you need to establish and what you need to be able to identify. Who's going to fit what role and how you're going to do it. So, absolutely, I agree with all the points you made. Magic are playing great ball.
Yes. Now, on to our second part of our favorite
My
game.
favorite portion.
Who should stay the fuck out the kitchen? Number one. At this point, Coach, staying in the NBA, I wonder if this team is just going to do a complete fire sale and say, fuck it, we're going to tank and start this shit all over again. And that's the New Orleans Pelicans. I know New Orleans fans might feel some type of way about this, but you guys might be on the brink of saying, you know what, we're finna clean house. We're going to start this shit all over with. We're going to tank our way to the bottom and get another chance of getting into this draft that's supposed to be one of the best drafts in a minute. It's kind of loaded, especially within that top lottery pick area. Most likely between that 1 to 8 area is a lot of guys that can really alter the franchise. So if I'm New Orleans and the way that they've been playing, you can depend on Zion because his weight is up and down as well as his health. Brandon Ingram, you're concerned about whether or not you're going to pay him, and you haven't gotten to a point where you've agreed on a contract extension. CJ McCollum is a veteran who, whether you keep him or not, is not going to change the dynamics of your organization's future. And you just got DeJounte Murray, who is a young point guard who can do a lot for your team, but he's not a superstar caliber player that's going to change the dynamics for your franchise, especially on the offensive side. Not saying he's a bum on the offensive side, but he's not that type of offensive juggernaut of a player. So if you're New Orleans and you can depend on Zion, Brandon Ingram, you're concerned about whether or not you're going to pay him. You haven't made a decision on that. And CJ McCollum, these are your best 3 players, and CJ McCollum is an old veteran. You might as well, at this point, just say, fuck it. Let's see what we can get for Brandon. Let's see if we can move Zion. Let's see if we can move CJ McCollum and start this thing all over with.
Yeah, I could see the point you're making there. No doubt the Pelicans have been absolutely shitting the bed. This is a team that's also been riddled with injuries. I think when they stay healthy,
they're a good team.
That roster sheet looks fucking phenomenal.
When they're healthy.
Exactly.
But can they stay healthy?
That's the problem like the Bulls had, right, when they were supposed to be good in 2021. Cannot stay on the floor and stay healthy, right? Okay. I know. But we both agree on what we think about that team. But Zion Williamson, I mean, the guy strains his hamstring and he's out for 6 months. I mean, that's like absolutely absurd. He's been out since the beginning of the season. We're in December.
Yeah.
He's apparently not even close to coming back yet. He's back on the basketball court. But
it's like
still,
he won't be back until the trade deadline.
Lord knows. I mean, it's sad to see too, because I mean, he came back into this season being the lightest since entering the league. You know, people were hype. He looked jacked at media day. He looked great. You know, had a little beard going, but
he looked really good. Like he was ready for the season.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. And you know, it sucks because I think this Pelican team is a fun team when healthy, but they can't stay healthy. They still have young pieces like DeJounte Murray, like Trey Murphy the third, Herb Jones. So I mean, they could still definitely go that young route.
They still have a way to compete and maybe compete for a play-in.
Yeah, it's kind of the position the Bulls are in, just a little bit.
Well, yes and no, because the Bulls have veteran superstars who are playing at the top of their game right now, who are in short lists with guys like Steph Curry and Nikola Jokic.
Sure.
The Bulls are in a situation where they can make a play for another superstar to add to this team, and we're talking about the Bulls in a whole different aspect.
Yeah.
They have the opportunity as well, though, to say, fine, we can move off of these veterans and become a tanking team and be in the same situation as New Orleans. So they have a path where they can choose either one.
Yeah.
We can go and move pieces for an additional star veteran player or a young veteran star player that can take this team to new heights, or we could falter and decide to go a different route and become New Orleans, essentially.
No doubt. Well, let's go ahead and move on to the next.
Who else should stay the fuck out the kitchen? Moving on back to the NFL. Just throw the whole fucking NFC South out the fucking league. They should just be playing Pop Warner football or flag football for the 40-year and older club, because only difference with this division against the AFC East, which is also bad with Buffalo, the difference with this is this division actually has decent quarterbacks out of 3 of the teams. Mm-hmm. From Baker to Kirk to Derek Carr, They all have veteran quarterbacks. How the fuck are you this terrible as a whole division?
Seriously.
Carolina gets a pass because we've already talked about how bad they are, but they have a young sophomore quarterback who is still trying to figure his way out, and Andy Dalton. Anytime Andy Dalton is your quarterback, you might as well just say, fuck it, we're going to be terrible. So with that being said, this NFC South division has been one of the most disappointing divisions, especially with the way that all of these teams started outside of Carolina. The Buccaneers started off great, the Falcons started off great, and the Saints definitely started off great.
Yeah.
They are the team that has completely fell the fuck off the cliff. So at this point, I'm saying that whole goddamn division, just go the fuck home. Call every team that you have left on your fucking schedule and say, fuck it, you got to win. Just knock us in for your W. We're not showing up, because if we do, it's not going to be a good game. It's not going to be a great game. It's not going to be a pretty game. It's not going to be a game at all. We're most likely just going to show up there, throw pads on, run around for cardio for 60 fucking minutes, and go home.
And it's so sad how the NFL playoffs are structured, because one of these
these badass teams is going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, and they're going to have a first round bye.
Yes.
Well,
no.
Right,
they're just
going to play wild card, but like
they'll play that
against,
next week, the week after wild card.
That's fucking crazy to me.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. Like, I think going into the season, the Falcons were a team that had high expectations. Nobody really thought the Saints were going to be good. So when they did come out good, it
was a surprise.
Right out the gate, they're like, oh shit, Super Bowl is in Louisiana this year. Like, let's go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Home team playing at their home stadium in the Super Bowl. But no, I mean, that dream has just shipped off the fucking Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah.
The Bucks, I started off great. They're another team. I wouldn't be surprised if they end up winning this division.
They could,
like they did last year.
Yeah.
It was the same situation. This division was very weak, and I think the Bucks had an equal record or maybe even a negative record and ended up sneaking into the playoffs. So yeah, scrap the whole fucking NFC South. I agree with you.
All right, that's been our game of who's cooking and who should stay the fuck out the kitchen. Now moving on to this wonderful game that was played between our beloved Chicago Bears and our hated Detroit Lions on Thanksgiving Day, where we were all sitting around being grateful for our family and friends, stuffing our faces with some of the most delicious foods we could have, prepared by some of our wonderful family and friends. And we watched this game play itself out. But before we talk about the game, I just want to play this clip of how the Bears were preparing to come into the season and what they thought they were getting themselves prepared to do prior to the season starting.
Sure.
Let's roll that
Chicago
clip.
situation's fascinating because they started installing with him before they drafted him. Like, they were installing with him in March. Like, when they use those, you're allowed 3 1-hour Zoom calls.
Yep.
They were installing the offense with them. They were. I mean,
what do you mean? Like,
well, they were putting the offense in with him. They had Shane Waldron, who's the new offensive coordinator there, Matt Eberflus. They were putting in the offense, and they didn't call it that at the time. But when they brought him for,
putting them on. He was putting them on the board with their playbook.
But they're putting in the offense, and then they get to, they get to the 30 visit in April. They had him at a table with Cole Kmet and Tevin Jenkins and the leaders on that team, DJ Moore, like those guys were like, so we're going to get the veterans comfortable with him. So when he shows up at the end of April, he can hit the ground running. And when we get to training camp, we're flying, and I think part of that's the makeup of the team too. Like, I mean, look, like they've been building for 3 years there. They've got, again, DJ Moore and Keenan Allen and Montez Sweat and Jermaine Edmonds, yeah, I mean, but I'm talking about veteran players where it's like those guys aren't sitting around waiting for a rookie quarterback to develop. So in that way, Matt Eberflus is serving what he's doing. But yeah, they were creative about the way they did that. And again, like they were trying to position him with his teammates and with the scheme where he could hit the ground running when he was drafted.
That's interesting. But I mean, I heard this already before the season started. Because like that clip on Instagram says, that clip was actually posted on July 25th.
That was before the season started.
That's what I'm saying. So like, I already knew about that then, and we kind of had this discussion before the show, and I just want to briefly mention it. Essentially, I was on the side that I think that shows even more the incompetency of Shane Waldron and Matt Eberflus. You were more on the contrary, saying that, well, I mean, this looks even worse on Caleb Williams.
It does.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it does, because you have been a part of learning this system for months now, way before the season even got underway. Arguably, they were illegally teaching you things about this system because they already knew once they got the first overall pick, you were going to be their quarterback.
Sure.
So every single time they got a authorized opportunity to meet you and see you and talk to you from the NFL, they were illegally discussing the offensive schemes, the offensive plan, the offensive system, so that by the time you came to training camp, there was really nothing else to really learn except getting timing with your receivers.
Well, I don't think that's illegal. I think during
I don't think you're supposed to do all of that.
Well, I think
that early.
I think, like you mentioned, those 3 1-hour Zoom calls that you get, I'm pretty sure you're free to discuss whatever you want.
I think you're allowed to just kind of talk about football, but I don't know if you're allowed to implement your actual system.
I think in the NBA that would be something that they would call as like tampering.
Okay, well,
you know what I mean? But
okay.
I don't think they.
Well, let's say it's not tampering. Let's say I'm wrong,
Sure.
and that it's not illegal to do so.
Yeah.
Even then, it's like, okay, they went way before training camp, way before way before they even drafted the kid.
We didn't even draft the guy.
Way before they even drafted him,
Yeah.
they were already preparing him to be a part of this system and understand it. Because, again, for Bears fans who are out there now trying to have revisionist conversations about that there was no expectations for this Bears season, that is the bullshit that I'm trying to get you guys to stop doing that. Stop trying to pretend that now that the season has been unsuccessful, well, it was just supposed to be a development year. No, the fuck it was not. There was no going into this season under the impression that the Bears were supposed to be just developing and we were supposed to be taking lumps as we went. No, the idea was that Caleb Williams was supposed to come in ready-made and prepared to take this team to a situation where at the very least we would be a top wild card contender for the NFL playoffs in the NFC.
Yeah, I mean,
that we would not be a team that was considered in the hunt. We would be solidified in a wild card spot at the very minimum. You even had some people exaggerating to the point of saying that we were going to go to the Super Bowl. Now, I was not on that, and I was definitely not on the train of we would win the division. But I definitely had us booked as being a solidified wild card team. And I think now that things have gone bad, we're trying to rewrite the narrative on the season and say, well, we knew we were getting a rookie quarterback and we knew it was going to take some time. No, the Bears did every single thing possibly to make this season go way much better than what it has gone. And yeah, we disagree on the fact that you're saying that the fact that Caleb has not shown any good sort of quarterback play, not the best. I won't say not any good. He's shown some good flashes, but he hasn't shown consistent good quarterback play under Shane Waldron and the Bears with Eberflus. You're saying that is a fallacy of the coaching and them failing Caleb. My argument is if you've had this much time to install information and you, the player, has been getting this information for months and months and months in advance, at some point I have to ask, what have you been studying? What type of time have you been taking out to read the playbook and understand all the calls and understand all the looks and understand all the things that you have available to you within this offense for certain defensive schemes, certain defensive looks, what type of audibles you would have? What type of homework were you doing, Caleb, for all this time that you've had advantages to understanding this system? That's where, to me, we differ in the conversation, and I can understand why you say, like, well, the coaches also had all this same amount of time to make sure this guy understood it, to make sure this guy got it. And that's and we can go back and forth about that. That's a pendulum that can go back and forth because we can blame game both sides.
Yeah.
But for the sake of conversation and for the sake of my feelings on Caleb, and I'm just being adamant, I can't sit here and lie in front on it. I have been saying that Caleb has not delivered the goods in which he was advertised. And I'm still standing on that. This is not to say that he won't be a good quarterback. And for all you Calebiansexuals out there, this is not to say that he won't be a good quarterback. Again, for all the Calebiansexuals, this is not saying that he won't be a good quarterback. It's just that he hasn't delivered the goods right now. And I believe that is due to the fact that he did not prepare himself the way that he should have, because he did come into the season with just a little bit too much ego on who he was and what he was going to do.
Well, Coach, I'm glad you had your little rant session about Caleb Williams, as you always do. Even when he's been playing his best football against the division in the last 3 weeks, it's still, he's not good enough. He's not as advertised.
I wish he could play. I wish he could play good football in the first half.
That's what I'm saying. Because he's doing it in junk time when teams don't care and they've let off the gas pedal.
They have. Look at the score. Look at the score in the second quarter of this game. 16-0.
I see where you're coming from, but that does not apply to the Detroit Lions, because the Detroit Lions are the same team that beat that Jacksonville Jaguars team by almost 50 points because they kept scoring in the fourth quarter and in the third quarter.
They did.
So I don't want to hear none of the shit that this is a team that lets off the gas pedal, because Dan Campbell is not that type of coach.
That's fair.
And he does not let his team do that. So
okay,
I mean,
I'll give you Detroit.
That's like my.
I'll give you Detroit. Are you going to say the same thing with Minnesota?
Minnesota has had their moments, which is why I could agree with you on Minnesota, but not the Green Bay Packers. Not the Green Bay Packers.
I don't know.
though.
The Green Bay Packers, I won't say that was the team that let their foot off the gas. The Green Bay Packers are just one of those teams that's just up and down. What I'm saying, though, is that essentially, just like any type of game, we're as coaches and we tell our players all the time, you can't win the game in the last 5 minutes. Rarely does it ever happen that you win the game in the last 5 minutes.
It's the culmination of everything that happened throughout the game.
Yes, you got to play the full game. And all I'm saying is it would be nice. It would be nice. It would be nice. And let me just temper myself just a little bit. It would be nice if we could come out in the first half and show signs of being a competent organization on offense, instead of always waiting until the fourth quarter when a team may or may not have let up a little bit because they think the game is in winning for them. They think the game has already gotten out of hand and they're going to win it. It would be nice that not until that moment hits that finally all of a sudden we're making plays and we're scoring some touchdowns.
Yeah.
And now we have to hope for every single event throughout the course of that last 5 minutes to go our way, from the right play calls to the right situations to the right timeout calls. That obviously Eberflus is infamous now for not taking that timeout call, and he is now removed of duty. Yeah. Right? He is now removed of duty, and he is no longer our head coach. And this game was his last game as a head coach for the Chicago Bears. Yeah. And that leads us right into our wonderful part of the show, the halftime report. Yes, the halftime report. All right, Coach. Eberflus is out. Shane Waldron is out. But before we really talk about that, I want to talk about a great head coach that's in the NFL who just so happens to have a consistency for getting the job done and winning. Obviously, if you don't know by now, you should know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That man's name is Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin, the head coach for the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? I want to talk about the Mike Tomlin effect just really quickly, and I want to say that Eberflus essentially is the antithesis to Mike Tomlin.
Yeah.
Everything that Mike Tomlin is, Matt Eberflus is not.
Yeah.
Preparation, motivation, accountability, and understanding player temperament. Mike Tomlin is A+++ at all of those categories.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things that I think changed this season around for Matt Eberflus was his handling of Tyreek Stevenson after the Commanders game on that infamous Hail Mary play. His handling of that situation, to me, began the start of his infamous firing that just happened this week.
Yeah.
His handling of Tyreek in that moment was absolutely one of the biggest coaching blunders that I have seen. Mike Tomlin would have, I know for sure, would have turned that moment into something very positive and proactive for his player. He would have held him accountable, but not in a way to embarrass him or to blame him. Mike Tomlin would have used that moment to be a greater coach, to dig in deeper on coaching Tyreek Stevenson. He would have told him, you play a pivotal part in our success. And if you don't know that, you damn sure know it now. Your attention to detail and your ability to be focused probably would have won us that game.
Yeah.
Because you, being the player that you are, when you're attentive and focused, you would have made a masterful play on that ball. But you being more focused on talking to the fans caused an opportunity for us to lose that game. Not cost us the game, because it's words, right? Those are words. The way you use them makes a difference.
Absolutely.
Eberflus would have said, you cost us the game.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Tomlin says, you gave an opportunity for us to lose the game. It's a difference. You're not the reason why. But just like any and all of us as a team, we win together, we lose together. You participated in a faculty that cost us the game. That plays a difference on the player. That makes the player take that information differently. Blaming me only makes me resent you.
Mm-hmm.
Offering me an opportunity to reflect and say, you know what, coach? I do play a big part. And I let the guys down. Because I know who the fuck I am. I'm Tyreek motherfucking Stevenson.
Right.
That's the difference. And what I am hearing now is that Thomas Brown, who is playing the interim head coach for the Bears, they are rumoring and putting out there into the media space that he has a Mike Tomlin-esque to his personality and to who he is. What are your thoughts on any of that?
So, no doubt about it. Just to go over Mike Tomlin real quick. He's been one of the premier head coaches in the league. His experience, his leadership, that really leader amongst men type of mentality he has is one that is sought for.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's directly why Pittsburgh has been so great over these last couple of, since however long he's been a coach.
Yeah.
They're always right there. You know what I mean? It's not like they're having crazy losing seasons. They're always in the hunt. Somehow, some way, no matter what the roster looks like, they're somehow in the hunt for the playoffs, which is actually crazy, which is the direct result of having a great head coach. A great head coach is able to take whatever they fucking give him and still be able to create with it.
Make something with it. Yeah.
Right. That's what makes, this premier head coach. As to regards of the Thomas Brown comments, it's actually something I brought up when we were putting the show together.
Mm-hmm.
In no means necessary do I think Thomas Brown is Mike Tomlin or is Mike Tomlin Jr., none of that.
Right.
I just see that Thomas Brown has the sense of accountability, that kind of leader amongst men type of vibe.
Got it.
And uplifting his players even through tough times.
Okay.
Which is what he has done with Caleb.
Okay.
In my opinion. So that's why I compare him a little bit to Mike Tomlin. Obviously, he doesn't have the success that Mike Tomlin has, the resume that Mike Tomlin has, none of that. But, Thomas Brown is still a young guy. I don't know how old he is, but, he might be right around 40, if anything. You know what I mean?
I don't think he's that old. He might
that's
be
what
like,
I mean.
He might be like a little bit, probably like 36, 37.
Right.
Maybe 35-ish. He looks fairly young.
Yeah, so I think that's a good sight to see if you're the Chicago Bears, is that you have a guy that in yesterday's press conference, I believe it was, where Ryan Poles and Kevin Warren kind of came out in this kind of like, we give up type of state, but trying to re-solidify, reignite some confidence into the team or into the media, into the fans that, oh, we're going to get this next coach right. You know, we're going to do right by you guys, yada, yada, yada. It seemed very scripted. But when Thomas Brown took his meeting as head coach, I believe earlier in that day or maybe after, you saw a guy that was speaking from the heart. And I think that goes levels. You know what I mean? Like, you want your head coach to not be reading off a script, maybe like Matt Eberflus was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That definitely seems like that was the case. But Thomas Brown spoke from the heart, spoke what he actually meant, very clear and concise in what he wanted people to understand. And I think those are really good traits to have. I'm a big fan of Thomas Brown so far, but he has to prove himself now. He's got his trial era these last 5 games of the season to prove to the league and to maybe even the Chicago Bears, I should be a head coach.
Yep. I mean, his best chance of making a case is beat the Packers.
Beat the Packers, or at least out of these 5 games,
beat the Packers.
I think go 3-5.
Beat the Packers. He has to beat the Packers.
Yeah. In Lambeau too.
You said
That'd be crazy.
you said in the last 5 games he has to go 3-2. You said 3-5.
Oh, my bad. Yeah, 3 out of 5 is what I meant.
Yeah, he has to win 3 out of 5.
Yeah, absolutely.
By the way, he's 38.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, that's awesome. That is awesome.
All right. Well, we know where the Bears are right now with their situation as far as Thomas Brown. He has a chance to make a name for himself, and we'll circle back on that. But I do want to quickly pivot to another team in the NFL, the state of Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I said earlier on, and when we started this show together, and I talked about how Baltimore, if they lean on the run game, they have a chance to be a true Super Bowl threat. And I still believe that. But their defense is going to be a problem for them. I'm going to be honest with you. I never thought in my lifetime, based upon everything that I've known about the Baltimore Ravens, who are very similar to the Chicago Bears when it comes down to defense, I never thought that I would say the problem with the Baltimore Ravens is their defense.
Yeah. That's actually crazy, like, to think about and just reflect on. Yeah.
Bruh, I never thought I would say that in my lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
These Ravens, if they don't fix this defense, they're going to waste probably one of their all-time better offenses.
Yeah. If not the best.
They're going to end up wasting one of their, like you said, if not the best.
It's probably the best.
Their best offensive group ever. And when you have an offense like this, you don't need a otherworld defense, but you need a defense that can make the plays when it matters. And Baltimore can't make the defensive plays when it matters the most. And it leaves the offense out there to have to make every play every single time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not convinced, no matter how good Lamar Jackson is, no matter how great Derrick Henry is, they're not going to be able to make every single play every single time.
No.
It's not going to happen.
There's too much film out there and too much There's been many moments now in the season where you've seen teams be able to control and kind of limit the impact that either Derrick Henry or Lamar Jackson has. So you really need that defense to step up, which I just want to add really quickly before we move on to this next segment. It really is surprising to see that Baltimore's defense is struggling because they have the skill.
Yes.
I mean, you've got Roquan Smith, you've got Kyle Hamilton. Like, you have these big-time names, and you're paying big-time money for these guys, and they're not performing.
And this guy needs to get his fucking shit together.
Jeez, yeah, we mentioned it at the beginning of the show. I mean, he's been my fantasy kicker ever since I've started fantasy. This is the first year he's let me down, which is very, very bad.
This guy, I don't know what the fuck has happened to him, but when they say Father Time just comes knocking for motherfuckers, this is the prime example of
it did not come knocking. They
this
bust down
motherfucker
that door.
bust down the door. from the front door and the back door and just say, give me all your shit. It's over with. Give me all your shit. Because I don't know what's going on with him.
Yeah.
Like, he's missing kicks that he never would have missed, ever. And then it's crunch time kicks that he's missing.
Yeah.
And he's damn near just as much as Robbie Gould when it came down to Mr. Clutch.
No, yeah, right.
Adam Vinatieri type shit.
Mason Crosby.
Yes. Those type of guys. So I don't know. But moving on from Baltimore and circling back to our wonderful Bears, we do have a clip to play.
We do.
That I do want to show. But obviously what's on the horizon is the Bears seeking who's going to be the next guy to head this team. But before we talk about who we would like, I want us to play the intro clip for this particular segment.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we just had, I'll call it an all-timer on the first Thanksgiving game this Thursday. And what on earth was Matt Eberflus doing? This may have been the worst clock management I've ever seen. 2nd and 20, Bears quarterback Caleb Williams drop back, scans the field, and gets sacked. With only 30 seconds remaining and 1 timeout left for the Bears, time is obviously crucial to get your team lined up and in field goal range. The Bears and Williams are very slow getting the next play off, and Caleb doesn't even snap the ball until 7 seconds are left in the game. But again, they had a timeout, and this is honestly just unacceptable by head coach Matt Eberflus. Your rookie quarterback takes a sack. He's obviously disoriented from the hit and flustered. This is exactly where the head coach should intervene, and soon as Caleb was sacked, get that timeout called. What makes all that worse is that the Bears were actually in a field goal range a couple plays prior. Caleb threw up a desperate heave on 4th down, and go figure, a crucial pass interference call gave the ball to the Bears on the Lions' 25-yard line. Although there was a missed opportunity, I'm very happy with the game, as I thought it was going to be a slaughter for the Lions, but Caleb and the Bears came out in the second half with a vengeance. The final drive before the flub started from their own 1-yard line, and the Lions ended up taking a very close one, 23-20, due to just that terrible coaching decision. Or do you actually blame this on the rookie QB? I personally don't. You get sacked, you're messed up. I mean, Caleb has been inconsistent all year, but he's also shown flashes of brilliance in his first season, remember, with the Bears. But what are your thoughts on Eberflus, and who's to blame for some of the worst clock management I've ever seen? Let us know down below.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Let's just get into that real quick, obviously. So, God, I hate just looking at that screenshot.
I mean, we know that's why he got fired.
Yeah, and I think it's a culmination as well. But that was like the final, like, okay, like this was on national television. The whole
Thanksgiving
NFL,
Day.
the whole, all of the media, all sports networks were calling for this guy's head to finally get fucking fired.
Essentially, it's like the Bears just felt embarrassed.
Yeah, and I've been calling for this for a while. I mean, I feel like I've been nagging at this every fucking week, and, you know, my dream finally came true, which I didn't even think was going to come true until I saw the national reaction that we got from everybody that Matt Eberflus needs to be fired. Like, the Bears have never done this, but this is the year to do it. They've
never fired a head coach in season.
I still wasn't confident that they were even going to do it, because that's just the Bears. You know what I mean? That's just the irony of the Bears, is that we've never fired a head coach midseason, but we finally did, which leads us into now a very particular and interesting situation where Kevin Warren has actually came out and said in that press conference, not directly, but very much implied, he is taking the charge in finding this next head coach with the assistance of Ryan Poles. What are you thinking about that real quick?
I think I'll say it's a couple things.
Yeah.
Somebody has lost trust in this front office. I don't know if it's Kevin Warren who has lost trust in Ryan Poles, or if it's the ownership
Could be.
that has lost trust in Ryan Poles. But Ryan Poles has lost trust. Now, there has been some backtracking and some information that has come out to kind of help Ryan Poles that says he didn't want to bring Eberflus into the head coach as the head coach into this season.
Yeah.
He wanted to fire him before the season started, but he was told by the McCaskies that he couldn't.
Yep.
So this lets me know where there's smoke, there's fire. the McCaskies are pointing blame at Ryan Poles, and Ryan Poles is saying, no, I wanted to fire him. You guys told me no, and Kevin Warren is stepping in as the mediator.
Yep.
And Kevin Warren seems to be saying, Ryan, I believe you. I actually do believe you. My time in dealing with the McCaskies, just as the president right now, is letting me know that they'll say one thing and they might renege on that and double back on that and leave you out there in the fray. So with that being said, I don't think Kevin Warren has lost trust. I think the relationship between the McCaskies and Ryan Poles has kind of fizzled a little bit over this Eberflus situation, because Ryan is saying, I didn't want him, and he's saying the McCaskies made me keep him, and the McCaskies are essentially hiding behind Kevin Warren and saying, well, you go out there and you find the coach, and because you're our president anyway.
Yeah.
Why should the GM be finding the coach? So I don't like it, because I would rather Ryan Poles continue to do the job that he's been doing, but I know what it looks like to me is that there is some front office organizational blame game that's going on right now for this debacle.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I agree with you on that point. And to be quite honest with you, I don't think I'm necessarily too happy that Kevin Warren
Me neither.
is stepping in. I'd much rather him focus on getting this fucking stadium built.
Figure that out. Just figure out what it's going to be.
And where you're doing it, because we still don't know where. I mean, like that's literally why you were brought in.
Yeah.
It's to do that. You know what I mean? It's to really revamp this stadium if you're going to keep it there, build a new one, or move to Arlington Heights, right? I mean, it was one or the other, and you still haven't made that choice. I think that's very alarming. And now you're going to take your time to find this head coach.
Yeah, and the top candidate, as everybody keeps talking about, is Ben Johnson.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, that's who I want. That's my personal top preference.
That's
I think that's every Bears fan's top
that's
preference.
Everybody is saying Ben Johnson, Ben Johnson, Ben Johnson. And my whole thing about Ben Johnson is just that he is the belle of the ball. Everybody is going to be trying to court him. Everybody is going to be bringing all the gifts, all the gold, all the silver, all the rubies, all the emeralds. They're going to be trying to give this man the sun, the moon, the stars, and the whole universe. He's going to have love songs sung to him. Every single thing that he wants, he's going to have at his feet. So you have to take into account that you're not the only team that's going to want Ben Johnson. And who's to say that Ben Johnson leaves the Detroit Lions?
Right.
Let's say they get to the Super Bowl. Let's say they actually get to the Super Bowl and win it. Now, is that a good time to ride off high off of a Super Bowl win, especially if the offense is absolutely obliterating the competition? Absolutely, yes. There's even more leverage. But then you have to ask yourself, well, I leave this and I go where to do what? I can stay here and we can win more Super Bowls. And if I do that, I still have the opportunity to become a head coach anytime I feel like it. There's not going to be a moment where Ben Johnson is not going to be coveted until the Detroit Lions fall off a cliff offensively, which I don't see happening.
Yeah.
So he doesn't have to be in a rush to be a head coach. You have to convince him why he should leave the situation that he's in. Now, unless he just has it in his mind that he's no longer wanting to desire to be an offensive coordinator and he wants to be the head coach, which, by the way, he even said as a head coach, I'm still calling the plays.
Yeah.
He's already said it, like, I don't give a damn whether I'm the head coach or the offensive coordinator. I'm calling the plays.
Yeah.
So even if I'm the head coach, my offensive coordinator is just up there in the booth.
Yeah, for
He's
assistance.
he's just up there just for the sake of show. I just had to hire somebody for this position. But don't get it fucked up. He ain't doing shit.
Yeah.
He ain't well, I say she too. We don't discriminate. But he or she ain't calling shit.
Yeah.
They not doing a goddamn thing. So with that being said, Ben Johnson is just like, I'm going to be the play caller. So it's like, you're going to have to convince him to come to your team, which I don't necessarily think. I'm not saying the Bears can't, but I'm not saying they won't. But here's my top three.
Yeah, go for it.
My top three, we'll call it Unk's top three.
Because you are unk as fuck.
Head coach opportunities. Obviously, Ben Johnson I have on the list.
Yeah.
Lincoln Riley and Eric Bieniemy. I know people might say, well, what the fuck, Eric Bieniemy or Lincoln Riley? And the reality is this. Kliff Kingsbury, I know people are saying that he could potentially be somebody that'll come. But in my mind, if I'm Kliff, you already fucked up a head coaching job in Arizona. You still got to prove that you can duplicate this with Jaden.
Mm-hmm.
Just this one season is not proof enough that you fixed some of the things that were wrong with you when you had Kyler Murray, right? You still got to show that you can be consistent with a young quarterback and keep him developing and keep him going and keeping him being one of the best in the league. So if I'm the Bears, I still want to see more from Kliff, right? I already know what I'm getting from Ben. Ben is out of here. He's the superstar in all of this. We know what we're gonna get from him. Lincoln Riley is a name that you have to consider because Caleb has followed him from Oklahoma to USC.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, Lincoln and Caleb have a great relationship, and they're the 1-2 punch that you might think about and consider to be bringing back together. They might be the MJ Pippen.
They still talk a lot to this day.
And they talk a lot to this day. The reason why I say Eric Bieniemy is because you've already comped Caleb Williams to Patrick Mahomes. Who better understands what Patrick Mahomes brings to the table outside of Eric Bieniemy? The guy who's been next to Andy Reid, the guy that when Matt Nagy was supposedly this offensive guru, left Kansas City to come to Chicago and proved he wasn't this offensive guru.
I mean, he did in that first year.
Oh, yeah, a little bit in that first year, but
Coach
whatever.
of the year.
And, yeah, he did. But, again, rookie season, Trubisky catching people off guard. Film on Trubisky, it changes the whole situation. But Eric Bieniemy has shown that he has the ability to develop a quarterback, keep that quarterback at high-level play, and put together an offensive system that works. Even when Alex Smith was there, he was a part of that system.
Yeah.
So it's like he's shown that he can take talent and get the best out of it. Now, he's never been a head coach, right? So I know that's the caution to pause. Plus, there's also conversations from some players who say there's a reason why Eric Bieniemy is not the head coach. So I can understand all of the hesitancy. But at this point, you need a guy that has proven that he can take pure, raw, special talent and maximize it to its most optimal. And he's proven that. Whether it's been Patrick or whether it's been lesser quarterbacks like Alex Smith. He's proven it.
Yeah, sure.
And if Caleb is the second coming of Patrick, you want the guy, in my opinion, that's been up close and personal with the blueprint.
I can see that. Your two guys question me besides Ben Johnson, especially Lincoln Riley. I mean, I don't know about bringing him in. Eric Bieniemy, I could kind of see maybe happening, but Lincoln Riley is literally just for Caleb. That's literally the only reason they would bring him in. But let's get those head coaching odds on here so I could give you my top three.
Yes.
From that list. Surprisingly enough, Kliff Kingsbury is number one on that.
He's leading the way,
which is crazy. But my top three: Ben Johnson's number one. I really want.
I say
him.
Let's not talk about Ben Johnson.
Yeah.
Let's choose other people outside of him. Everybody wants Ben Johnson.
Yeah. So it's 2A and 2B is Mike Vrabel and Thomas Brown. Mike Vrabel
is. I don't know why.
My thing with Mike Vrabel is I don't necessarily know if he'd be best.
But if you want Mike Vrabel, just real quick, if you want Mike Vrabel, why wouldn't you take Bill Belichick?
Because I'd rather, I don't know. I think Bill Belichick has gotten way too caught up in all this reporting shit. And
okay, well, keep talking about Mike.
Mike Vrabel, I think, and what he did in Tennessee, in Tennessee with the Titans, which they honestly did not have that great of a roster.
No, they didn't.
Was still able to make that conference championship game and that miraculous run that they made. And he's another guy that's a leader amongst men. He's very connective with the players. Mm-hmm. He knows how to get the best out of every guy, which is why I kind of lean to my 2B of Thomas Brown. He's tentative for now in my 2B position because we haven't seen what he can do at the head coach position as the interim this year. But I think if he could really have a good end to the season, I think it would be beneficial if you can't get Ben Johnson to establish some continuity with the success that you had from the previous year and let Thomas Brown actually run a training camp, establish that offense early on, which we've seen, kind of the way he's running it now has been successful with Caleb. So I think there'd be some benefits in bringing back Thomas Brown if he's able to perform in these last final 5 games.
So you're not sold on the idea that the next head coach has to be offensive minded?
Not necessarily, no, because I think if you get, like Mike Tomlin's not, an offensive head coach.
Yeah, but
you know what I mean? I want a leader amongst men that's proven. If you're gonna bring in a defensive guy, other than that, get an offensive guy that knows what the fuck they're doing.
Now I'll say a name that's not up here that I'm shocked by. That's not up here. Somebody that's already kind of been putting his bid in quietly, but just kind of keep it on the low. John Gruden.
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of that too. That'd be crazy. I just don't think his
I
style
wouldn't necessarily mind it because I think John Gruden brings a little bit of that Mike Ditka type of edge.
Sure.
And kind of like that Buddy Ryan, Mike Ditka type of edge. And I also think that he would be one of those head coaches who would completely leave the offense to the offensive coordinator. Like he would just stay the fuck out of their way. And that wouldn't be necessarily a bad thing for the Bears if you're going to go defensive-minded head coach. I personally think that we should just get an offensive-minded head coach because we need to get this offense right, and we need a coach that's going to marry themselves to Caleb and make this shit happen.
Yeah.
Because if Caleb doesn't work for the Chicago Bears, and I'm going to say this to all Chicago Bears fans, if Caleb doesn't work at this point, you have to ask yourself, who the fuck will?
That's my point, too. That's literally my point in all of this. If you can't develop Caleb into at least a good quarterback, who the fuck can you bring in at that point to actually make them good?
At this point, the Bears will be stuck to just saying any veteran quarterback that's a free agent, we have to go buy them.
Yeah.
We have to go get them.
Yeah.
Fuck drafting quarterbacks from this point on.
Because y'all can't do it.
Because we can't do it.
No.
So that's why I'm saying essentially they have to marry themselves to, in my opinion, it has to be somebody that's offensive minded and they have to marry themselves to Caleb.
Absolutely.
All right, well, let's move it on to our Week 14 NFL predictions, baby.
Yes, sir.
All right, Green Bay versus Detroit. Who you got?
That's Thursday night, so that's actually tomorrow at the time we're recording this. Really good matchup. Give me Detroit.
I got Detroit too. Cleveland Steelers. I got Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh's gonna get their get back for what Cleveland did.
Yeah, absolutely. New Orleans Giants. Who cares?
Shit, give me the Saints though.
I got the Saints too.
Yeah.
Jets Miami.
Miami. Fuck New York.
Jacksonville Tennessee. I got Jacksonville. Oh no. Trevor Lawrence might be not playing that game.
He got really fucked up.
Give me Tennessee.
Yeah, fuck it, same.
Falcons, Minnesota.
Give me Minnesota.
Carolina and Philadelphia. It's a divisional game, so it has a potential of being tough, and Bryce Young is playing better.
That's not divisional.
But, no, it's not divisional. That's interesting because Bryce Young has been playing better.
Yeah, but give me
the. I'm gonna get the upset. Give me Carolina.
Oh boy, I'm telling Moo that today.
Raiders versus Buccaneers.
Bucks bounce back.
I got the Bucks.
Or play better. Yeah.
Seattle, Arizona. That's a divisional game.
That's divisional, and that's a very important game because that's 1 and 2.
That might decide the division winner going forward. I got Arizona.
Yeah, Arizona's at home. Give me Arizona.
Yeah, Chicago, San Francisco.
Fuck it. Give me Chicago.
We're on the road.
Christian McCaffrey's out as well.
Yeah, but Brock Purdy is back as the quarterback, and San Francisco is still in the hunt in their division.
Very true.
I think this is going to be a closer game. I don't think this is going to come down in the waiting minutes for the Chicago Bears to make magic happen in the fourth quarter. I think we will show up in the first half, but I think San Francisco pulls this game out at home because they need it a little bit more than the Bears.
I can see that.
Buffalo, Los Angeles.
I
got Buffalo. They've been playing their ass off. Chargers versus Kansas City.
Give me the Chargers.
I think the Chargers upset Kansas City too.
They're gonna get their get back from a couple weeks ago.
I told you that I was never gonna go against Kansas City until they lost, and they finally have lost.
Yeah.
And I think the Chargers are priming themselves to be one of those teams in the AFC playoff hunt that if they make the playoffs, you don't want to play them.
Mm-hmm.
Cincinnati and Dallas, who really gives a fuck?
Give me Cincinnati.
But I got Cincinnati for that game.
Absolutely.
As always, remind yourselves, people, we have to let you know the halftime sweepstakes is always going. Remember, this week, the Bears are playing San Francisco. Remember, post your story, tag us in it. You have to be following our Instagram and you have to be following our YouTube. You have to get the score right at halftime between the Bears and San Francisco. It's not just good enough to say who's winning. Have the score correct. If you do all of those things and you're following us on Instagram and YouTube, you will be the winner of the sweepstakes.
$50.
Real quick, Coach. What's your score at halftime for the game?
Score at halftime, Bears are up 17-6.
Halftime, the score for me, the Bears are winning 24-17.
Okay.
24-17.
All right.
But I have San Francisco winning the game.
All right.
All right, that's been another episode of the Halftime Podcast. This is episode 11. I am Coach Malcolm. This is
Coach Conrad.
And as always, it's C Red and Bear Down, baby. Let's go.